Hello and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Those of you who are going to tune in live, but also thank you to everyone who's going to watch this afterwards. I've got to say, if you guys have any comments, quite happy to answer them. So you can always just leave a message right here. So, drop a little comment. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and like the channel. Also, you can always reach out to us on any of our social media channels. I am more than happy to answer any of your questions about all of our foodies. So, as we usually do, our topic for today is listening to your aquarium. So everybody's aquarium is a little bit different. Yes, there is kind of like a standard of, I guess, how to go about doing things. But within that, there's always a little bit of deviation between everybody's aquarium, and that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. But first, I'm going to show you my fun coffee mug. All right, so you guys I'm sure have seen this awesome dang cute fish mug. It's one of my favorites to use in the morning. It's got a cowfish on there. It's got some of my favorites, but today I thought I'd switch it up. I'm feeling a little bit like tea, so I've got this awesome Nessie tea steeper in here. So how cool is that? So you pull the little feet off, put the tea in there, and it just steeps. How fun is that, right? Anyway, so saltwater mug, freshwater steeper, all good stuff. Although on a note, for Dang Cute Fish, she's got an Instagram channel now, guys. So if you're ever curious to watch her do these drawings, it's very relaxing to watch. I believe it's just Dang Cute Fish, so you can go and search for it. She's the one that has designed the logos on our stickers, so I highly encourage you to go check out her channel. Real quick, before we get into talking about your aquarium and listening to your tank, I want to talk to you a little bit about our whole product line. Now, a lot of times when you go to the stores, they're not going to carry the full line of New Life Spectrum, and we have a very broad range. So one of the things I love about going to the trade shows is that they have these awesome little pamphlets that we get to pass out to people, and it tells you about all of the different foods that we have. So real quick, I'm going to try and go through these. I get a lot of questions like, what food can I feed for X fish, or what food can I feed for Y fish? So I'm just going to let you guys know real quick, what kind of foods we have. I'm not going to go into depth, but just run through the list. If I have a jar of whatever it is, I'll be happy to share it. So first off, we've got our, So we've got our specialty fish formula. So this is going to be like the discus fish, cichlid, cyclosoma. It depends when I say cyclosoma, so it depends on where you're at in the world. I think the UK has a slightly different version of some of these, like a cichlid blend, than we do here in the US. But then there's our betta formula. We also have our all-purpose formula, or I might refer to it as the original. So that it is the original New Life Spectrum. And I don't actually have any of that to show you guys. But cichlid, if you've got cichlids, that's a really, really good one. It's going to have you covered all the way across the board, no matter what kind of cichlids you have. Next up, we have our marine formula. So it's kind of like our original, but it's for your marine fish. We also have a lot of these come in the different sizes. So if you're not sure what size, you want to get a pellet that's half the size of your fish's mouth. And I talked a little bit about that last time, but so on the front, it's going to say medium pellet. I mean, you probably can't see that. Okay, well, I've got this nice glare in the shiny. So it says medium pellets right here in the glare, and it also will say it down here. But if you turn the jar to the side, you're going to see this. It's going to have a picture, so that's about what the pellet size is going to look like, and it's also going to give you a numerical value of what size those pellets. So the medium pellets are going to be 2 millimeters to 2.5 millimeters, and again, that size is going to be right there. So if you're in a fish store and you're looking at these jars trying to decide, that's a good way. All right, guys, I'm going to have to pull my hair back. Get in my way. So again, we have sizes, different size pellets. So we've got small fish, medium fish, large fish, mega fish. We also have our so our community fish, but so we're gonna have those for like goldfish and koi as well. Now, I'm gonna go on the outside of this pamphlet. So Thera A, I know I talk about Thera A a lot, and of course my jar is, I've got like a whole table back here with all of my foods. So this is Thera A, it's great. A lot of people use this, especially for new fish. It's one of the foods that I feed in my quarantine tank every day, so that is good. It's got a little bit of extra garlic, great for immune boosting. Next up is Algae Max. That's actually that first jar I was showing you. It's got a whole bunch of different types of seaweeds and algae in there. Really good for your herbivores. And I like it for a lot of my hermit crabs too, actually. So that Algae Max actually comes in a couple of different sizes. So you can get the pellets, but you can also get wafers, and then you can get mini wafers. So it's good for like my tangs in this tank, but also if you've got freshwater plecos or those bottom feeding fish that just kind of hang around and like suck algae off the rock, you might want to consider using those mini wafers. They sink a little bit faster than the pellets do. The pellets are more geared for the fish, but those wafers are great for those bottom dwellers. Next, we have our grow line. So if you are breeding fish, if you accidentally have baby fish that you weren't planning on, our grow line is great for that. It's got a lot of extra protein and a little bit more fat, so it's really going to be good for getting those little baby fish jump started into life. Whoop. All right. So next up, we've got Ultra Red. This is another one that I occasionally will recommend to people with cichlids, especially if you've got those cichlids that have those bright pinks and like reds. Ultra Red is going to enhance the natural red colors that might be already occurring in your fish. It's not going to give your fish reds that aren't already there, but if you want to make, like, say you have a flame angel for a saltwater tank, and it's looking a little dull, you can give them some Ultra Red, and that might just like give them some pep. So we do have a medicated line of foods. So we used to carry Ick Shield, but we've discontinued Ick Shield, so now it's just Hex Shield. But we do have the powdered version of Hex Shield and Ick Shield, so you can buy like the powdered medication versus the medicated food. So the medicated food, Hex Shield is the only medicated food that we've got. Next up, we've got our line, it's called Float. So as you can guess by the name, all of these pellets are going to float, so it's going to be good for your fish like Oscars, a lot of fish that feed at the surface. Frank, who feeds at the surface, probably would do well with these. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think, what's the other fish? Oh, koi. Koi is another good one that you could use float with. Next up, we've got Reef Cell. Now, if you've tuned into any of these videos, you've probably heard me talking about Reef Cell. That's our coral food. It is amazing. It's what I feed in my tank here. It's actually what we feed in our tanks at work now too. Next up, we've got our gel and our dough food. These are great. If Hex Shield doesn't work for you, if you've got like kanamycin or Metroplex or something like that, and you want to medicate food for fish, you can medicate food and put it in like a gel or a dough form and feed your fish that way. But this also is great. I've talked to some institutions that mix this up and kind of like mush it in the rocks for fish that are like really slow eaters but are kind of picky. So that's our our gel and our dough food. Next up, we've got our premium flakes. So just take our pellets, smash it out. It's a flake. That's exactly what this is. The formula is not changed at all, but so we just have converted the pellets to a flake. And that's for people that are feeding flakes, that really like the flakes, ours are very popular. So that's not our full extensive line. I've got my other one. Oh. There's so many foods, you guys, and I really want to use these talks to like try and show you. So we have invertebrate for crustaceans. So if you get this, I tried using this for in here for my little hermit crabs. Well, Frank eats them before they make it to the bottom. So this is going in my little nano reef for the little hermit crabs in there. So we do have an invertebrate crustacean. We also have an invertebrate reef macro feeder. So I got this one, the pellets. These are the medium pellets. I'm just gonna give you. So there's those medium pellets. And again, if you're not sure, you can always twist the jar to the side and check it out right down there. All right, so I think that's my whole spiel on our product line. So there is that. I don't know if I mentioned to you guys the last time. So Vivid Creative Aquatics, they had a randomized flow nozzle that I was lucky enough to pick up at the last show. Let's see if I can lower this camera a little bit to see it. All right, gotta get it down into Frank's. All right, I'm gonna dim this light a little bit. All right. So you can kind of see it. It's like right in Frank. Now the light's blocking it. Now Frank's blocking it. So there we go. So you can see this nozzle over here. I installed it. It hooks in on a lock line, and what it does is, as it pulls water, it'll pull a little bit from the top, and it'll randomize the flow throughout. So I'm actually getting better flow. It's really kind of cool to watch when I am feeding. So when I put those pellets in for Frank, he goes nuts as usual, and but it's cool to see them kind of like swirl into the tank. So I've had that on for about a week now. I'm pretty excited about that. Big shout out to Antonio at Vivid Creative Aquatics for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. It's really interesting to see how much that's changed. I'll be curious when I do my next water test to see if that's how it's impacted my water quality. And speaking of water quality, today's topic. So I saw a couple posts online, and this is just in tanks that I've taken care of too. So I mentioned a couple weeks ago about phosphates, and I'm having issues with phosphates still. I was talking with, I can't remember who I was talking with online, but we got talking, Mighty Nanotank. So he posted, we're talking about where you keep your alkalinity at. And I was thinking, personally I like to keep my alkalinity like 7.5, maybe to 12. It's a big range, but depending on what's going on in the tank and how the corals are utilizing those nutrients, but that's where I personally keep it at. However, some of the tanks that I take care of at work, we just got a new curator, and they like to see the alkalinity somewhere between like 13, like around 13, which to me seems very, very high. And I was talking to Mighty Nanotank, and he's saying that he likes to keep his like 7 to 8. So there's a very broad range of water parameters that you can have for any system, and it goes to show you, like, if you pay attention to your tank and you know your tank, like how important it is to listen to tanks, because some people can have those crazy water parameters. You can keep your alkalinity up at 13, 14 and have a perfectly fully functioning gorgeous tank with corals. So another example of this, in the past I have taken care of tanks. The one tank had a phosphate problem, so I would go out and I would test the phosphate every week. And no joke, this tank was so covered in algae you could almost barely see in the glass. It was nuts. We brought out everything we could possibly think of. We were doing huge water changes. We had sea hares in there. We had cleanup, new loads of cleanup crew every time we went out to the tank. Chemi Pure, you name it, we had it in this tank trying to get that phosphate out. And those phosphate readings were at I think 0.3 was the highest it got, and it was covered in algae, right? So the tank that I take care of now, the phosphates, I'm pretty sure they're probably higher than this, because both of the test kit that we use, it tops out at this. So the phosphates in this coral tank are 0.9, which is insane. Most phosphates, I like to see them at 0.03, 0.06, pretty low. So for 0.9 to be where those phosphates are at. But if you look at the tank, it's really not that bad. We might have to clean the algae a little bit more, but, and there might be some, build up on the glass a little bit more frequently. But for the most part, like, it doesn't look that bad. And then I come here to the tank that I've got at the house, and I get that tested. It's like 0.58, so it's high. I knew it was high. But like, I've got stuff covered in algae. Not as bad as the tank that was sitting at like 0.3 that you couldn't even see in the glass, but it just goes to show that listen to your tank, pay attention to your tank, and you know, just because your water quality parameters don't fit like perfectly inside the values that like most people consider normal, doesn't mean that it's bad or that it's off. You know, if you've been in the hobby for a while and, you know, you're staring at your fish and, like, you could look at Frank and somebody would be like, oh, he's sick. Like, no, he's not sick. He's got, when he was younger, last year, he had somebody, like, bite off half of his horn, and so he's got a crooked horn. He's not sick, but, you know, those are, like, things that you notice when you're paying attention to your tank. So maybe my point for today is, like, pay attention to your tank. If you know your water, you know, just because your tank doesn't fit specifically into the guidelines that you know, people follow, doesn't mean that it's bad, doesn't mean that it's wrong. You know, you could be achieving success in a different way than everybody else is achieving success. So, yeah, I guess my question for you guys at the end of this is, have you ever had any, like, outliers, so to speak, when you're doing your water quality or taking care of your fish? Fish are behaving normally, then, you know, they are usually expected to, but they're still healthy and fully functioning. So I guess that was a bit of a ramble, but just one of the realizations that I came to this week in some of the conversations I've had. So thank you guys so much for listening to me yammer on about you know, listening to your tank and all of our different foods. So if you've got any questions about anything I talked about today, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. But if you're not always on here, you can always reach out to us. You can send an email to media@feedspectrum.com. Somebody will answer that there. It might be me, it might be one of my coworkers, but you can also reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram. We'd be more than happy to talk to you. Hope you guys have a great week. I will see you next time.